This lesson is about accidentals. Accidentals are symbols that we use to raise a note, which is a lettered note, a half step down, half step up, two half steps down, two half steps up. And we have 4 or 5 symbols for this. The double sharp symbol, which means you go up 2 half steps from the letter you're on, and the sharp symbol, which means you go up just 1 half step. The natural sign cancels out one of these other ones and puts it back to just the letter. The flat brings it down a half step, and the double flat brings it down 2 half steps. Now, if we did this in letters, and we had a letter C, we don't need to put the natural sign if it's just the letter, but that's used when we cancel things out. So if we have a letter C, it could go up a half step and become a C sharp. It could go up 2 half steps and become a C double sharp, and for some reason we use this fancy little symbol instead of 2 of these. If we go the other way, if we're at C and then we come down, it becomes a C flat, and we go down from there, it becomes a C double flat. Showing that visually on the piano keyboard, here's C. If I came down from C a half step, that would be C flat, which we also know to be called B. If I came down 2 half steps, C double flat could be the same note we know as B flat, A sharp. If we go the other way, from C we go up to C sharp, and we can go to C double sharp, which would be the same note we know as D. Sometimes they're called by these other names, more rarely, but these are very common. These are less common, but you will see them in music. Let's take a look at some examples of how accidentals work. And some important rules about those accidentals. Let's put ourselves in the treble clef, and let's say, write a note like so. Name the notes as I put them up. What note is this?
G.
G. How about this? How about?
A sharp.
That one's going to be A sharp. So now I got G, A, and A sharp. Now, what is this note? And the answer is that note is still A sharp, because you only have to write it once for it to still be good for the entire bar. It won't cancel out until you hit the bar line. If we have to put an accidental on every note, then it gets a little busy and messy and cumbersome. Now, what if I did this? Some students get confused. What note is that?
B.
That's going to be a B or a B natural. It's not a B sharp. Some students think that because they see a sharp that now every note is sharp, and that's not the case. It's only the note that it's attached to. So we've got A sharp, then A sharp, then B. Now, here's 2 more notes. What are they? That's going to be an A. We could call it A natural just to remind ourselves that it's no longer A sharp. And then we would call this G. So the important thing to remember is that the bar line is where the accidentals stop being in effect. If you see an accidental, a sharp, a flat, a natural, double sharp, double flat, they cancel out once you hit that bar line. We could also just say this was A. Now, sometimes you will see, let's see, let me make a little more room here. Sometimes you will see this. If you see an accidental where it, because of the rules, doesn't really need to belong, we don't really need to put that natural sign there. That's just a courtesy reminder. We actually call it a courtesy accidental. Sometimes you'll even see them in parentheses. We call that a parenthetical natural or a parenthetical accidental. Composers use this and editors use this because they say, let's see, you've been performing A sharp and all of a sudden you're going to go back to A natural. We just want to make sure you know that the composer meant that and that we mean that, so yes, that is an A natural. Sometimes your sharp or flat occurs in a different part, and so they come over and they put it into your part so that you don't, if you're hearing a different pitch in your head, you don't end up singing that same pitch. So these are courtesies, but everything cancels at the bar line. Just remember that. Now, one more thing about accidentals. When you see accidentals at the beginning of a piece of music, this is what we call a key signature. And And you can watch the video on key signatures to learn more about these. But let it be known now that wherever these show up, that's a B flat, and that's an E flat. That means that every B and every E in the entire piece will be a flat without having to write it next to it. And it does not cancel at the bar line. So name these notes for me. What is this note? There's our B flat. Just name with me. C and D. What's this note?
E flat.
E flat because it's in the key signature, right? Okay, so there's an E flat. Now what if I did this? What note is that down there?
E flat.
And this gets confusing for some students because it's not on that line, it's up here. But this says all E's are flat, doesn't matter where they appear. This will still be an E flat. Now let's say I want to natural that E flat. Now I have an E, or an E natural. Notice we write it natural E, but we say E natural. We say B flat, but we write it flat B. So we always kind of do that backwards. Now, here's an E natural. What note is this? It's an E flat again, right? So if I want it to be, well, let's just leave it at that. And what note is that? There's F. So, important to know when you're doing accidentals that the bar line cancels out the accidental, and if you see them at the beginning, the bar line does not cancel out the accidental. Basically, these are the rules for how accidentals work. Thank you very much.